In a world where chaos is glorified and coldness is often mistaken for strength, the real challenge is not to build walls, but to keep the heart open. We live in times where everyone rushes to protect themselves from pain, but in doing so, they also shut out love, compassion, and life itself. The question is not how to harden yourself against the world, but how to stay soft enough to feel, to care, and to truly live. Pain is not a curse to be avoided, but a teacher waiting to be understood. It enters life uninvited, yet it carries the power to reveal who you truly are beneath all the masks and defenses. When pain arrives, most people resist it, bury it, or blame others for it, but that resistance only deepens the wound. The moment you stop running, something begins to shift. Pain no longer feels like punishment, it becomes a passage, a fire that burns away pretense and reveals the raw truth of your being. When you allow yourself to face pain with open eyes, it transforms from torment into wisdom. Every sting of heartbreak, every moment of loss, every silence that feels unbearable is shaping you into something more refined. Pain chisels away arrogance, pride, and illusion, carving space for humility and clarity. It is not there to destroy you but to awaken you. You begin to see that what hurts you also molds you, making your awareness deeper and your heart more capable of love. Those who avoid pain live shallow lives, always circling the edges of experience but never diving into its depths. To numb pain is to numb joy, for they arise from the same source, your capacity to feel. When you dull one, you dull the other. The heart that dares to feel pain completely becomes vast, like the ocean that accepts every storm yet never loses its calm depth. Pain, when embraced, expands your inner space until you can hold both sorrow and serenity without breaking. Strength is not found in building walls or carrying a hardened exterior. True strength is in receptivity, in staying open to life even when it tests every corner of your being. A soft heart is not a fragile one, it is the most powerful force because it allows itself to feel, to break and to heal again without losing its essence. When you can remain tender while facing the roughness of existence, you are no longer at its mercy, you become the master of your own depth. Pain is not an enemy but a mirror reflecting where you have grown numb. Those who dare to feel pain without running from it discover that it is not suffering but transformation. Pain sharpens awareness, it strips illusions and polishes the soul like a stone being refined by the river's current. To numb pain is to numb wisdom, for every wound carries within it the seed of understanding that no comfort can teach. Compassion is not an act of weakness or pity. It is a deep clarity that arises when the boundaries between you and the other dissolve. When you look beyond your own struggles, kindness flows effortlessly, not as an obligation but as a response born from awareness. Indifference is the true weakness. It shuts the heart off from life. Each time you resist feeling, you lose connection with the rhythm that gives life its warmth and meaning. Silence is the refuge of a soft heart. The world's constant noise tries to make you hard, restless and reactive, but when you return to inner stillness, your heart remembers how to breathe again. Gratitude grows in that silence, it melts bitterness and makes space for peace. To respond instead of react is the art of a conscious heart. It is where softness meets strength, where gentleness stands firm without aggression. Forgiveness and beauty are the nourishment of a tender heart. To forgive is not to justify, but to free yourself from the prison of resentment. To seek beauty daily, in nature, in music, in love, is to keep the heart alive and unclenched. A truly soft heart sees everything but carries nothing. It moves lightly, loves deeply, and flows freely through the roughness of the world. Such a heart does not escape life. It transforms it quietly and powerfully, without ever losing its lightness. Compassion is not an act of sentiment or obligation, it is the highest form of clarity a human being can reach. When you see beyond the narrow frame of your own thoughts and emotions, you begin to perceive life as it truly is. From that perception, compassion arises effortlessly, not as something practiced, but as a natural movement of understanding. It is not softness for the sake of appearing kind, it is intelligence in its purest form, where the line between self and other begins to dissolve. A heart that has touched compassion does not calculate or expect anything in return. It does not act from guilt or moral conditioning, it acts because it cannot do otherwise. Compassion is the fragrance of awareness. When your vision is clear, you no longer see people as enemies or competitors, you see their struggle, their confusion, their pain. You recognize the same life beating in every being, and that recognition brings forth action that heals without effort or resistance. Compassion demands courage. It requires that you look into suffering without turning away. It means you allow yourself to feel deeply without drowning in the emotions of others. Most people confuse sympathy with compassion, but sympathy weakens both sides while compassion uplifts. Compassion stands steady in the storm. It sees pain, yet it does not collapse under it. It understands that true care does not mean carrying someone's burden, but helping them find their own strength. When compassion takes root, your presence itself becomes a source of balance. You stop reacting to hostility with hostility or ignorance with judgment. Instead, your very being begins to dissolve tension wherever you go. There is no effort in this. It happens because you no longer carry inner conflict. Compassion is the natural consequence of inner harmony, just as fragrance is the natural outcome of a blooming flower. Indifference may appear like control, but it is the slow death of aliveness. When you numb yourself to avoid pain, you also seal away your capacity for joy, wonder, and connection. Many people confuse numbness with peace, but numbness is not calm, it is absence. It is a wall built to keep life from touching you. And while it may protect you from hurt, it also isolates you from everything that makes existence worth living. A heart armored by indifference becomes hollow, untouched by pain, but also untouched by beauty. The moment you start to defend yourself from feeling, you start to shrink from life itself. Pain and pleasure are not opposites, they are twin flames of the same fire. To feel deeply is to live deeply. Every sensation, even the unpleasant ones, remind you that you are alive. When you build your world on avoidance, you end up living a half life, safe but empty. The heart loses its warmth, the eyes lose their light, and every experience becomes mechanical without pulse or passion. Indifference is born from fear. Fear of being hurt, fear of losing control, fear of being seen. But life does not bend to fear. It demands vulnerability. It demands that you open yourself even when it hurts. You cannot selectively shut out pain without also shutting out love. The same door that keeps out sorrow also keeps out joy. To live guarded is to live unseen, even by your own soul. The courage to feel is the only real armor a human being can wear. To stay sensitive in a world that constantly demands hardness is a rebellion of the highest order. It is choosing to remain human when everything around you tries to turn you into stone. Sensitivity is not weakness, it is awareness sharpened to a fine edge. When you allow yourself to feel fully, you begin to see the hidden textures of life, its fragility, its wildness, its sacred unpredictability. From this depth, compassion naturally awakens, not as a duty, but as an instinct of life itself. Indifference may shield you from wounds, but it also denies you transformation. Every heartbreak, every disappointment, every crack in your being is an opening for light to enter. To stay open is not to invite pain, but to allow growth. The heart that feels everything may bleed, but it also blossoms endlessly. To live without indifference is to accept the full spectrum of existence. To be shattered and still choose to love, to fall and still choose to rise, to remain tender even when the world is not. Silence is not the absence of sound, it is the presence of depth. It is a space where the noise of the world dissolves and what remains is the pulse of existence itself. When one forgets to return to silence, the world's chaos begins to shape the mind, filling it with clutter, confusion and restlessness. In that state, the heart grows rigid, reacting to every disturbance. But in silence, reactions fade and clarity awakens. It is in that still space where you truly begin to hear life, not through your ears, but through your being. When you are rooted in silence, the outer world loses its power to disturb you. Noise may surround you, but it no longer enters you. You begin to operate from a place of calm alertness rather than restless defense. The opinions of others, the rush of time, and the pool of desires no longer rule your inner state. In silence, you stop fighting with life, instead you flow with it. Your actions become precise, your words carry weight, and your presence alone becomes a source of peace. Silence is not withdrawal from life, it is the foundation for engaging with it fully. When your mind is constantly agitated, you cannot truly see what stands before you. But when silence fills your inner space, your perception sharpens. You start to notice details that once went unseen. The rhythm of your breath, the emotion behind a stranger's eyes, the whisper of wind against the earth. In that awareness, life stops being a blur and becomes vivid, almost sacred. A silent heart is not empty, it is overflowing with understanding. It does not rush to judge or to control. It observes, absorbs, and responds with balance. In this quietness, even pain loses its sharpness because you stop identifying with it. You see it as a passing wave, not a permanent wound. Silence teaches you that you are not every thought that crosses your mind, nor every emotion that stirs your heart. You are the space in which they come and go. To stay grounded in silence is to stand unshaken amidst the storms of existence. It does not mean isolation or escape, but mastery. Silence gives you the strength to face noise without becoming noise. It softens the roughness within, allowing compassion, patience and clarity to bloom. When silence becomes your foundation, every word you speak carries truth, every action you take carries grace, and every moment becomes an expression of inner peace that no chaos can touch. Gratitude is not a polite expression or a habit of saying thank you. It is a state of awareness that transforms how you experience life. When the mind is full of complaints, it creates distance from the very source of life. It begins to see everything as insufficient, unfair or incomplete. But when gratitude enters, that same life begins to look rich, alive and meaningful. The shift is not in the world but in perception. Gratitude melts the hardness created by dissatisfaction, turning every ordinary moment into a quiet blessing. The heart that remembers to be grateful cannot remain bitter. Bitterness thrives in forgetfulness, in the illusion that life owes you something more. Gratitude cuts through that illusion by reminding you that nothing is guaranteed. Not breath, not health, not another sunrise. Every moment that you are alive is borrowed time from existence itself. When this understanding sinks deep, comparison and resentment lose their ground. The heart softens not through effort, but through realization of the miracle of simply being here. Gratitude does not blind you to pain or injustice, it gives you the strength to face them without collapsing. It allows you to acknowledge what is wrong without losing sight of what is right. In its light, even suffering becomes a teacher rather than an enemy. The heart learns to hold both joy and sorrow in balance. knowing that both are part of the same dance. Gratitude becomes the thread that keeps you connected to the essence of life, even when everything around you seems to fall apart. To respond rather than react is the difference between awareness and chaos. A reaction is born from habit, from the wounds and fears that have settled deep in the system. It rises instantly without understanding, often leaving regret in its wake. A response, however, comes from clarity. It is deliberate, calm and conscious. When one learns to respond, one stops being a puppet of emotion and becomes the master of choice. The power lies not in suppressing reaction, but in transforming it through awareness. Reaction is the language of a wounded heart. It emerges when the mind is trapped in its own stories of pain and expectation. Every harsh word, every impulsive action carries the residue of unhealed emotion. It blinds you to the present moment, making you fight ghosts of the past in the faces of those before you. But when you pause, when you breathe before acting, that very pause becomes sacred space. In that space, understanding blooms and you begin to see things as they are rather than as your pain imagines them to be. A responsive heart does not mean a submissive one. It does not remain silent in the face of wrong, but chooses its expression with precision. It speaks with firmness yet without poison. To respond consciously is to carry strength without aggression, to stand steady without hardness. Such a heart cannot be manipulated by emotion or circumstance because it is anchored in stillness. Response comes from that inner stillness, reaction comes from inner turmoil. The difference decides whether your actions create peace or more conflict. Forgiveness is not an act of approval or weakness, it is an act of liberation. It is the moment you choose to stop allowing the past to poison your present. The wound may have come from someone else, but the suffering continues because of your own attachment to it. The one who hurt you may have long forgotten, yet you carry the weight as if it defines you. Forgiveness is the sharp knife that cuts the chain binding you to pain. It is not done for their sake but for your own freedom. To forgive is to reclaim your energy from the past. Every grudge, every memory soaked in anger keeps you enslaved to what can no longer be changed. The mind loves to replay the story, feeding on resentment as though it provides strength, but it only breeds decay. You start to become what you despise. Forgiveness breaks this pattern. It does not erase the memory, but removes its venom. The same event remains, but its power over you dissolves. You remember without burning. Forgiveness does not demand that you forget or trust again. It asks only that you stop allowing bitterness to rule your inner space. Many believe that holding anger protects them, but anger corrodes silently, eating through peace like acid through stone. When you forgive, you are not letting someone escape justice, you are choosing not to destroy yourself in the name of revenge. Forgiveness is not surrender, it is transcendence. It lifts you above the mud rather than letting you drown in it. A heart that forgives becomes light. Its walls crumble and flow returns where once there was stagnation. The energy once spent on resentment becomes available for creation, for love, for clarity. You stop reacting from wounds and begin responding from wisdom. Forgiveness transforms your inner climate, it turns the storm of rage into a quiet sky. From that stillness, understanding arises, not towards others, but towards life itself. You begin to see that every hurt, every betrayal was a lesson pushing you toward growth. Beauty is not a luxury, it is a necessity for the human spirit. A heart that forgets beauty becomes dry and mechanical, functioning without pulse or purpose. To see beauty is to remain alive to life itself. It is not found only in grand things, but in the smallest movements. The curve of a leaf, the rhythm of footsteps, the flicker of light across a wall. When you train your eyes to see beauty, You train your soul to stay soft. Without this nourishment, even success and comfort turn hollow, for they cannot fill the space that beauty alone touches. To nurture beauty is to remain in constant contact with life's tenderness. The modern mind, obsessed with speed and productivity, has forgotten the art of wonder. Beauty requires stillness, it demands attention. You cannot chase it, you can only notice it. When you pause long enough to feel the wind, to hear the song of silence, or to look into another's eyes without defense, you are feeding something sacred within you. That quiet appreciation becomes a bridge between you and existence. A heart that witnesses beauty regularly cannot easily fall into cruelty or despair. Beauty softens the edges of anger, dissolves the residue of pain, and restores balance where chaos has taken root. It reminds you that even in darkness, something delicate continues to bloom. When the world feels harsh, beauty becomes your refuge, not an escape, but a reminder that gentleness still exists. It restores faith in life's intelligence, showing that harmony is possible even amidst disorder. A soft heart is not blind to the cruelty or chaos of the world. It sees everything with piercing clarity. It witnesses deceit, pain and loss, yet it refuses to turn cold. Such a heart knows that to close itself off from the ugliness of life is to also close itself off from its beauty. It does not deny what it sees, it simply chooses not to carry it as a burden. In the depth of its awareness lies freedom. The freedom to feel without drowning, to love without clinging, and to live without being consumed by the weight of experience. To feel deeply is not a weakness, but a form of courage that many cannot bear. It means allowing joy and sorrow to pass through you completely, leaving behind no residue. Most people resist emotion, holding on to what pleases them and rejecting what pains them. But a soft heart moves through both with equal openness. It does not chase happiness nor run from suffering. It lets life touch it fully, knowing that what flows through you cannot destroy you, only what you hold on to can. In the end, the world will always have its noise, its harshness, its storms. But if you can walk through it without letting your tenderness die, you've mastered the greatest art, the art of being human. The soft heart does not escape the world, it transforms it, one silent act of love at a time.